What is the DOM? Cool. What does this tell you the type of data structure we are about to refer to? So smart. So smart. Right? So, when people say, or developers, or smart people say the DOM, what we're talking about is a representation of the HTML document as a tree. Cool? So it just represents all of this. This right here is the DOM, right? And why is it called a tree? Any idea?
Looking like a tree.
It looking like a tree, right? Except more like a little bit upside down. And here's how we'll take a look at it, right? So a tree is actually a data structure in computer science, and it represents some hierarchical structure, meaning that there are some parent nodes, right? So you're looking at the root on top. You have this powerful trunk, and then it branches off, right? And then each of these branches can have branches. And so here we can take a look at an actual representation of what a tree looks like. This would be the root node. And then this root node has what attached to it? These branches, right? These branches that come off 2 are known as children, right? So 2 has how many children, and what are they? They have 2 children. Well, rather, 2 has 2 children. Nice. And what are those children? 7 and 5, right? So 7 has how many children? 2. And what are they? Now, what siblings does 7 have? Just 5, right? In the same way that 6 has how many siblings? 2. Yeah. More like a cousin, yeah. But it'll still come up, right? In terms of where it is, right? In terms of from the root, you go 1 level down, and then from the root you go 2 levels down, and that's why 6 has 2. It's an important concept, right? Is based on how far down it is from the root. Cool? So that's why you want to view it as this tree. Otherwise, you're like, oh, that's a step cousin. We never hang out except maybe Christmas, and then we get into weird political debates. But whatever, right? So, any questions so far? Why we call this like a tree? So you can think of this as sort of like the document or the body, and then it has all these divs that split off. Right? So here we have the body. You have this first div, and then this div can have, what are these from the div? Children, right? So this div has h1, p tag, and a unordered list as child elements to this div. Cool? And these are all siblings, right? They're all trees. Great. So it's represented as this tree-like structure because it can get pretty gnarly, right? So what you want to do is make sure in your Atom, Visual Studio Code, whatever package you have, to make sure you can start to display what these lines are. Here I have it right here. You see these lines? Super helpful. They tell me exactly where this div ends visually. I can follow this powerful line just to see exactly where this div closes. Cool? I can see immediately if that makes sense or not. And should that make sense? I mean, it'll still run, but is it good, clean code? Can I read it as easily? So do you see how indentation can start to get really, really important as to the readability of your code? Yeah? Great. So here, first thing we want to do is let's talk about this right here. Bloop. No more of this. What is the first word in this DOM? DOM. What does the first, yes, the D in DOM. What is that? Document, right? Let's take a look at what that possibly is. You see how this whole thing highlights? Chrome is very, very intuitive. It's already highlighting what it is that I'm trying to grab. So let's return. What is this document exactly? Well, it holds this doc type, the HTML, the head tag, and the body tag. Right? Literally holds all of my HTML. The baseline HTML that I first loaded and is now being rendered onto the screen. Right? Remember, when I first went to this URL, it did some sort of, what, GET request? That request sent back this response, and now this browser knows how to paint that response to the page. Right? So, let's take a look at what this index.html looks like. Right? It looks like a tree. This div has how many children? A little trickier now. How many children? This div has 1. Right? In order to add a child, where would I put this new div? Outside this div, and I would say span. And then I would close off this span. So now, based purely on this, right? And then this can have children, right? Little h1. Like, I'm a child. Bloop. So this div now has how many children? Because you can see it right here. And this span in relation to this div are siblings. Cool? Just want to make sure that terminology gets like hammered into your brain. And this div has how many children? 1. Cool? Does this div have any siblings? Where? Cool. Right? So, great. Is everyone comfortable with sort of that terminology of like children and siblings and the document, the DOM? Great. So let's traverse the DOM, right? Let's do some stuff with this DOM. First thing I want to do is I want to be able to grab something from the DOM, because ultimately what I really want to do is I want to manipulate this DOM. I want to manipulate my HTML with JavaScript, right? How would I do that? How would I grab something off the DOM? I have to select it, right? Where would I go to reference how I would select something on the DOM? MDN, right? And what would you put into Google? DOM, selector, MDN. Right? Well, MDN, I mean, it'll give it to you in JavaScript, right? But here, handy, we have this amazing cheat sheet. Cool? And you will find this, where do you think? Where do you think this was ripped from? Attaboy. So, cool, let's take a look, right? So there's a couple things I can do. I can get an element by ID, and that will return how many things? 1, right? So now we'll start to understand why we say certain things like an ID should only be used 1 time in your entire HTML. Because if I want to get something by its ID, something, not things, I should return how many? Single element. What about classes? Have you ever heard that classes can go on multiple, and it's used for styling multiple divs that get the same style? How many do you think those will return? Like a collection, right? And so now some of these rules will start to make sense now because of how we need to manipulate and traverse the DOM. I keep saying traverse the DOM. What does that actually mean to you? How can I go from one element to the next, to the next, to the next? How can I grab the element that I want on the DOM from in relation to another element? All right, I'm going to move through the DOM. Yeah? You can, but traversing just means I'm going from one element to another, right? Probably efficiently, but you can do it inefficiently. We'll show you here in a second. So what is tag name and class name? How is that different? Right?
Class is class.
Very good.
Class is class.
that what you're gonna say? Okay. So let's take a look, right? This right here, this div, this h1, that is the tag. This is the ID, naturally, and I don't have, actually, here, let's just do this. Go. How do I add a class to this div? Powerful. Powerful. Cool. Remember, you can always do this. You are a full stack developer, so at will, let's just say I needed access to this h1, this particular h1. How would you do it? Knowing that the document starts here, what would you need to do to traverse the DOM to get to this particular h1? Say again? Sure, follow the tree, right? I want to follow the tree. So what's the first thing I see in here? I see HTML, right? Knowing that I can already get inside the HTML, do I want to bother checking inside the head? No, I'm always going to be assuming I'm going to look inside the body, right? So I'm inside the body. Where can I get reference to this child? First, I need to get through this div and see, does this div have the child that I want and the child that I want here? That's a way to traverse the DOM, right? That's just how you can sort of think about it. That being said, let's take a look. We have tag name, right, which is just literally the h1 tag, the p tag, the image tag. You've heard us reference it in that way. So there's class name. I can do element.get elements by class name. And if I put in powerful, what would I get? I would simply get this one div, right? There's query selector and query selector all. What do you think the difference is in what it returns, right? Because syntactically it makes sense, right? Do I want to query select or do I want to query select all? And then I pass in what I want inside the arguments of this function. So you can see these are parentheses, so this function should be being invoked, and I can pass in arguments in here, exactly what it is that I want. So let's try that. What do you see the difference between these and these four are in regards to how the method is being invoked? Right, this is only available on the document, and these are available on elements, right? So you're gonna run into something. The juice is not worth the squeeze to go into a deep dive into the nuances. However, this is an element, but it's also a node. Node is the more generic term. In the way that I referenced the DOM earlier, right? These are all nodes. But a specific node that I'm referring to will be known as an element. All right? So I can say that this body has a child node, and that child node is this div element. All right? The juice is not really worth the squeeze. I'm not saying that you'll be wrong, but you will not really offend people if you sort of interchange them. All right? They are, however, different. Cool? Is anyone completely lost or really, really want a deep dive into that just syntactical difference? Yeah, I didn't think so. Cool. All right. Cool. Good deal. So let's try one of these. All right? Boop, boop, boop. God. Hash slinging slasher back there. Oh, you like SpongeBob? Very good. Good deal. Great. So, knowing what I know about this document, right? Can I grab this element? Great. What are the two ways that I can do it? Or the query selector. The query selector will grab anything. These are specific to ID and class names. So, which one do you think came first? Probably these, right? So these are the newer functions, and the only way to specify the differences in the same way that you do CSS selectors is you will use a hash for ID, and you will use a little dot for the class. Cool? Is that really distracting, or I'm sorry, there's not much I can do. I can go kick it, but it'll just get it mad. All right, cool. So let's get back here, right? Let's see first, right, this old school document.getElement by ID, and I simply pass it, what ID do I want to grab? Let's just grab this outer node real quick, all right? How would I grab that? I just go outer node. Do I need the hash if my method specifies that it's going to be an ID? All right? What do you think this will return me? Just this div, right? And all of its. So how would I get to internet memes from here? Well, let's take a look, right? Each one of these has methods on them. So I can simply, I can console log it, right? I can simply do const outer node equals to this. Just gonna talk over this thing. And great. So I can console log it, right? Old school log with outer node. I should have put this. I'm still in Ruby land. I'm sorry. Should be camel case. Cool. And that's it. But what if I wanted to see all of what? The properties of this. What console should I use? Talked about this the other day. It's a little tricky. Is it warn, error? It was dir, right? So I can console dir and the outer node. So now I could see all of the properties of this, and they are intense. They're intense, right? I can see immediately, great, cool. Look at this. I can do some sort of next sibling, right? And what does that return me? I have these child nodes, right? Previous sibling, element sibling, parent element. I can traverse it simply going through all of these methods, right? Naturally, I would see something like, oh, what's this? Children? And how many children does this have? So can I call outer node.children? And what would that return? The collection, right? Nice. Right, with just that one div that's inside. And that makes sense because if we look at the document one more time, I'm in this outer node, and the children are going to be this div. And this has a child, and this has a child. Gross. Gross. Let's find out. Children returns a collection, right? What does that collection look like to you? It looks like an array. So, very good, right? But it is not an array. I cannot call a for each on this. I cannot call all of the methods on it. What are the methods that I can call on it? All of these. For each is not on here. Cool? But I can turn it into an array. And I can simply do array from, and I can pass in an array-like object, like outer node dot children. It's the steam that's like trapped in there. I know a lot about construction, sorry. It's like terrible. Anyways, and then this will give me an actual array that I can then call for each for and all the other array prototype methods. Cool? That being said, let's just keep going to outer node and write this disgusting code. That it is array-like, so it is indexed like an array. So I can simply go 0. And that will give me what? Damn Chrome. Cool. And this has, oh God, another child. Ugly. Terrible. And then I can go one more. And that div has, oh, thank God. Thank God. All right. And I will simply do this. Finally, at that h1, right, I can simply const, right, my meme h1 equals to this disgusting line of code. Ugh, terrible, right? meme h1 is just going to give me, now I have access to it. All right. Why do I shudder at code like this? There's got to be a better way. TM. Thank you, Chrome Boy Chrome. Huh? Why is this bad? It's not that it's not dry. It is definitely repetitive. However, what the problem is if I, for whatever reason, go, and I add in a wrapper, like a div, and I say class, simply semantic container, right? And now I added some style to it. What happened to my amazing child 0, child 0, child 0 code? I broke it. It does not scale. Can you imagine that as elements come on and off your page, that if you hard code your child elements and you traverse the DOM manually, it becomes brittle. Brittle code means that it doesn't scale well, right? It's hard coded. If I ever make a change, it becomes painful to go back and change it. Because then I have to go back, find it, and go, great, now I have to do children again, 0. But what if I'm like, oh man, turns out I don't even need this div. And then I delete it. Now I have to go and find that child 0 and delete it again. It's disgusting. Disgusting, right? So, who's familiar with CSS selectors? Kind of iffy, meh. So what we can do, and I will show you, is... Say again? Oh yeah, good looks. Whoop. Thanks, text editor. Thanks, Dan. Who's Dan? ESD. Cool. So, great. So let's take a look. What is meme h1? Oh, because I refreshed. Sorry. Embarrassing. So, the point is that if you start adding things, it breaks your code. Cool? So, let's get back to... I'm sorry. That I can't do anything about that. Document dot. So we can do what? Get element by ID, and then we can pass it outer node, right? Just like that. Another way we could do it is, which way? We can do this query selector, right? So what element am I going to be calling it on? It's looking for an element. It is looking for an element, right? I have to call the query selector on something, but what can I call it on? Well, let's find out. What is for sure what I know that will give me everything? Can I call selector on this? So it turns out the document is also an element. Smart. How do I get the ID of outer div? Right, because here, am I already specifying that I'm looking for an element, an ID? No, I have to tell it I'm looking for an ID of outer div. The heck? Oh, outer node. There we go. I was like, yo, that should work. All right, cool. Thank God, right? Great. So now I have it. Same thing. Cool? I'm so sorry. We could freeze and just turn up the heat. So, that being said, let's take a look at this index.html. What do I know is a child element of outer node? Anywhere inside all of these, because remember what it returns me. Just this div alone, or the div and everything inside, right? So I have something called powerful, something called semantic container. I also have a tag of h1. So if I wanted to, I can simply go outer node. Inside outer node, I'm looking for a H1. It will give me H1. Oh, so did I add anything to this? No, right? There's no precursor to this, no prefix to it. Is there a class of H1? Is there a class of? Is there a class of? Oh, dang, I shouldn't have typed so long. Semantic. And then inside, specifically more powerful, are there children divs of powerful? Like what? Oops, yeah, like what? So unless I add the dash, these are two separate classes. Cool? So I can search for it by container class or semantic class. Or I can say, give me the div in there. So each space will search all the children of the ones that these will find. Are there any questions on that? This is how to effectively traverse the DOM. Because no matter what, if I keep adding divs to this, it will always look inside the outer node div for something that has a class of powerful, and then return that to me. So, I see you in a second. That will break my code, yeah, because then I can't search for something with .powerful. Yes. It's gonna look for the first one. What are you trying to do?
So like, say like, I don't know, maybe go to your HTML.
Sure.
Go in the second div and put semantic or go like the head or the body or something.
Sure. What do you want?
Semantic of
Class?
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, I just added classes again. So I'm looking for semantic container. I can't because these are two separate classes. If I wanted them to be one class, I would do this. Dot semantic dot container. Oh, you mean like dot semantic dot container? It will look for, this right here is saying there's two classes on the thing that I'm looking for under outer node. The space that separates them will mean that inside that, I'm looking for the children in there.
Well, so if you space around it,
that'll return, yeah.
Well,
this only works because I had bad, it's looking under semantic and then something for container, so it finds this anyway. That's why. Cool? So it traversed here to semantic, and then it said, look under semantic for a container class, and then it found this. So it happened to be the same one.
So it's included anyway, because you captured the whole div.
Correct. The first one, this one is saying, inside outer node, there's a child with two classes, semantic and container. This one says, inside outer node, there is one with semantic. And then inside the child of all of these, there's one with container class.
So if you put .x.container,
.x.container?
Yeah. Or does it use that?
You mean .x.container?
Yeah, without the semantic.
What would that be looking for?
Because you said it's just looking for a class.
Well, now it's looking for under outer node something that has .x and .container. Cool? Great. Those are really good questions that like clarified any potential misnomers and added some like real value to like the lesson. So I appreciate it. Cool.
But if you don't want to have anything to do with that first semantic, you just want to get right to semantic container div, the one where
Then you can ignore all of this and just go right into semantic.container.
okay.
Cool? I'm just showing you how to traverse it and what it's doing. But if you know exactly what you want, then just go ahead and grab that ID immediately, and we'll start doing that. Cool? So smart.
And if you had two H1s that were siblings, then
It would find the first one. Unless you do query selector all, which it will give you a node list of both. So, cool. Now the questions are getting too specific that you can Google or we can talk offline. All right? So, returns an element, returns a node list. Different from HTML collection. Why is it different? Can I call for each? So which one are you probably going to wind up using often? There we go, right? So when you get a question like, hey, go ahead and use query selector all, and you're like, why? I'm like, stop the madness. Cool? Because it has array methods that you can use on it. Cool. So let's continue. Great. So I can grab some stuff from the DOM, right? Can I use JavaScript to create elements? Absolutely. How can I do that? So on the document, I want to create an element. Wow. So aptly named. And what does it take? Oh, Google's not helpful anymore, huh? Local name? What does that mean? That's right. It's just saying I need a string and I need to know what element I'm creating. So I can simply create an image tag just like this. Do I have access to it? No, so I probably need to const image tag, right? So now this image tag, great. It's just a plain old image tag, right? What does image tag normally have? Right? So I can console, what was that fancy one? Not log, warn error. Cool. And I can just check the image tag. And it has what? Powerful. But we know that this is what gives us the actual URL, right? So who wants to throw an image onto the screen? What kind of image do you want me to put on the screen? Great. Last time we did this, it was sad cats. Oh. Which one was it? This one? I could simply take the image address, right? Bloop. Oh man, that's sad. That is really sad. And I can go image tag, and what was that method again? And I can be like, hey, it is now this in the string. Cool. So if I say image tag, I have the source. Wow. What do I want to do now, right? Let's think about this. Ready? I got to make a new element, right? And I want to throw that bad boy onto the page. So the first thing I have to do is document.createElement. And whatever element you want, right? Then I needed to assign this thing. Then I simply gave it a source, right? Some URL that we know and love. Actually, is it still here? Oh yeah. Crying.jpg. Sad. Now I want to throw that bad boy onto the page. These are the procedural steps that I'm going through that you got to start thinking through. Like, what do I need? And then how am I going to do it? So now that I'm at this point, what would I be Googling? Attach an element to DOM MDN. Right? And then you will find something like append child specifically. So I can simply do, where do I want to append this to? Let's just put it on the body, anywhere on the body. Let's just think, ready? I want to throw this, I don't know. Maybe, sure, in this container. Look, add images here. Wow, great. So I want to add this to the container. How can I get that container ID? Document.querySelector, right? And what am I looking for? Hashtag container. You guys got this. Cool. Do I have access to it right now? No, so I need what? Container. So the container can then append child. It's looking for a node, right, which is going to be a specific one. The specific one I just made. Ready? Wow, sad cat. Done. Are there any questions as to how we thought through this, what I would Google, what I would find, and then how I would figure this out on my own if I was asking you to implement a new feature? Cool, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to mess around with something, show you how to do it, and then we're gonna take a 5-minute break. You will find a website of your choice. You'll mess around, you'll break it, and then I'll show you how to iterate through and like add a bunch of things to the page at once. Cool? So the first thing I want to do is say, for example, this right here. Wow. Let's say I want to get rid of it. How would I get rid of this? I can use this inspect button, which you've seen me do. I can click it, it will turn blue. If I unclick it, it's gray. And I can just drag it over here and just go, oh, look at this sweet image tag. And now I have found it. This is what it is on my HTML. It actually added it to my HTML that's on the client side, not on the server side. So if I refresh, it should be gone. That being said, I have access to it right now. Notice how Google Chrome says this is currently temporarily assigned to $0. I can click anything and it will be $0. That's useful because now if I'm just playing around, I can go, what is $0 right now? Can I $0 and boop, gone. Cool. So let's say I wanted to change something, like instead of internet memes, right? I simply wanted to grab this, right? And this H1, it's $0 right now. How would you grab this right now? Well, $0, but how would you grab it without $0? It's tricky because your query selector for H1 could return what? Anything with H1. I can just go in there, go in this Bad Johnson, and just go, hey, you know what? ID, right? Give me that. And now I can query selector ID, right? I want to expand your mind that you have full control. You can do anything you want. So I can simply query selector now the ID of give me that. And then now, let's just $0 it for now because I'm crunch for time, right? And I can say, what is the inner text? Internet memes. Can I simply say Netflix adaptation of Rugrats? Wow, it changed it. Magic, right? JavaScript's amazing. That being said, let us do this. Do I still have my image tag? Cool. Can I change the source? What do I want it to equal? Great. Let's just do this. The Netflix adaptation of Rugrats. Cool? Great. I think I have it in string already. Cool. So now, can I do document.body.appendChild and add that image tag? Boom. Wow. But none of this is persisted data. So if I were to refresh, you like that? You like that? I take Halloween very seriously. Cool. Rock, paper, scissors. I won, so I'm Lil, obviously. Better character. If I refresh, it goes back to what? It does that GET request to the server, and it sends back that HTML, and that HTML did not have any of my changes. Cool? Great. So let's take a 2-minute break, and all I want you to do is go to fave site, right, heart, and simply manipulate something on that site. Anything you want. Change that text, add an image, maybe see if you can quickly Google in the next 3 or 4 minutes how I can change the CSS of something after I've selected it. and then give it a different background color, a border. Are there any questions as to the instructions for the next few minutes? Cool, have fun. You're already doing it. So what I want to do now is I have another file called dank memes, right? Naturally. And where it's loaded in the HTML is all the way at the bottom. And we'll go over why it's at the bottom in a different lecture. But here I see that dank memes is in fact loaded into my HTML. So do I have access to what is defined inside dankmemes.js? Yes, right? Let's take a look at that. Dankmemes.js is just a const with dank memes. It's an array of dank memes. And here I can simply go dank memes, and there it is. And it's array, right? What I want to do is I want to throw dank memes onto the page. Let's think this through. Procedurally, how would you solve this? Right? What's the first 2-3 things you want to think about? Yeah.
I would iterate over that array.
So iterate over dank memes array. Sure.
And create a image element for each item in the array.
For reach. Uh-huh. Cool. Right. So far, so good. Does this make sense, everybody? How we would attach this? So, do I want to figure out where I want to attach it to inside the iterator? No, right? I probably want to know where am I attaching these dank memes. So where do you want to attach it to? Let's just put it on the body for now. So how would I do that? Dot what? I can just grab the body first, query selector, and I'm just going to give it the body tag. Cool? And this is just going to be HTML body. Is this okay? Stop the madness. Stop the madness. Cool. So now that I have that, right, now I want to iterate over the dank memes array. How do I do that? Dank memes. Little for each action. Cool. And what does for each need? Dank memes is an array. Yes. Function. It takes in a callback, right? But really what it's asking you to do is tell me what this for each is going to do. So this for each is going to what? It's going to what? First, what is it going to get? It's going to get this meme URL, right? So it's going to get some sort of meme URL. And with each of these meme URLs, what did we say we're going to do? So a little bit of this, const, right? Meme image equals to. I need to make the image, right? Then I need to what? Assign the source to the image, right? Otherwise, I'm attaching these empty image objects. So how would I do it? Equals to what? Meme URL. Remember, as I go through each of these, the first thing in here is just going to be URL as a string. So, boom. Now, what should I do? How would I do that? I would take the element and append child with what? The meme image, right? And there it is. Signed, sealed, delivered. I'm yours, right? This is me 99.8% of the time. And then when I'm in front of you lecturing, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Cool. Who would win? Very good. These dank memes have been hand-selected by Andrew Chromeboy Cone himself, right? They use coding and algorithms so drones don't crash into each other. If going to crash, run a function called don't. Andrew loves that one. Ready? This is the weirdness of JavaScript, right? Because we know 0 is definitely equal to the 0 string. Loose equality, right? This is like all of my code. Right? Great. So, to review, right? We know how to log. Cool. Definitely didn't mention that at all in the class. We know how to grab stuff on the DOM. We know how to create elements. We know how to manipulate the elements we just created. We know how to throw things on and remove them from the page. We know how to edit them, whether it be the inner text or whatever it may be. And we can take data that we have and we can utilize that, knowing the JavaScript that we know, procedurally figure out how to, with the tools we were given, do something. Are there any questions about the DOM, traversing the DOM, right? The different query selectors that we can use, and manipulating the DOM in a way of your choosing, or figuring out how to do something. MDN. Great, that's all I got for you.